Gluttony and the Free Lunch, an economic experiment for the classroom. To begin this demonstration, I distribute this menu. It has a wide variety of prices. There is standard junk food such as curly fries and more sophisticated fare. Alcohol is available, so someone always asks if the restaurant cards. It does not. The highest priced item on the menu is Dom Perignon, priced at $125 a bottle. I also distribute 4 order sheets per student. I assign each student a number which they must write on their order sheets so that we can keep track of how a particular student's orders change over time. I begin by telling the students that they are going to this restaurant for lunch. They are alone and will be paying for lunch out of their own pocket. The question they must answer, using their order slip, is what they want to eat, keeping in mind that they must pay for it out of their current income. The prices on the menu include tax and tip, so the full cost of the meal is reflected in the listed prices. They total up their order and submit their first order slip. For every student, I enter their order in a spreadsheet. Then we return to the restaurant. Everyone is just as hungry as they were the first time they went. They haven't eaten there for a while, so they haven't grown tired of the options offered on the menu. The difference between the first round and the second round is that now they will be eating with the 5 people who are nearest and dearest to them. I tell them that they have eaten with this group before, and they know how the evening always ends. Someone will say, "It's too hard to figure out what each person owes. Let's take the bill for the entire table and divide it by 6, and that will be what each of us owe." I tell the students that they must fill out their own order sheet, given that they know the bill will be split 6 ways at the end of the night. That is, they must tell me what they personally would order. They are not filling out an order sheet for the entire table. For every student, I enter their order in a spreadsheet as round 2. Then we go back to the restaurant for a third round. This time, it is called college lunch. They are eating alone, just like they were in round 1. I tell them, as they look around the nearby tables, that they don't see anyone they know. However, all 4,000 students from the college will eat lunch here today. How much each student will pay for lunch will depend on what they collectively order. That is, rather like round 2, the total bill for the restaurant will be added up. Then that number will be divided by 4,000, and that is what each student will have to pay for his or her lunch. Given this scenario, each student needs to fill out his or her order sheet, indicating what they want to order. I collect the information and enter it into my spreadsheet as round 3. Then I reveal to the class the spreadsheet which depicts what they have collectively chosen to date. This is a typical spreadsheet taken from one of my classes. What always happens, as you see here, is that the average price of a meal increases as you move from round 1 to round 3. I let them know that I am glad that they don't consider me to be one of their nearest and dearest 5 friends, because it looks like they are trying to get others to pay for an increase in their consumption. I also point out that, in round 3, some students have chosen to sample Dom Perignon. Then I turn off the spreadsheet and we return to the restaurant for one final time. This round has the exact same conditions as round 3. It is still true that the price they will pay for a meal will be determined by taking the bill for the entire restaurant and dividing by 4,000, the number of patrons. The only difference between round 4 and round 3 is that they know how others behaved in previous rounds. Students submit their entries and I record them in my spreadsheet. The average meal price rose from $12 in round 1 to $89 in round 4. Collectively, they have become gluttons. In an attempt to get a free lunch, everyone ends up paying $90 for lunch. For round 5, I tell them they are going back to the restaurant. But this time, they have a choice of payment schemes. Rather like the old smoking and non-smoking sections, they get to decide if they want to sit in the private pay section or the group pay section. The private pay section works like round 1. You pay for what you order. The group pay section works like all of the other rounds. What you pay is determined by what everyone orders. I ask for a show of hands from everyone who wants to sit in the private pay section. The vast majority of the class typically chooses private pay. I ask those who have chosen the group pay section what they ordered in round 4. They often admit to having ordered more than the average bill. In particular, we often find they previously consumed a bottle or two of Dom Perignon. At this point, I move on to a class discussion from which we deduce some generalizations based upon this experiment. I introduce the concept of free riding, and we note that the group provision scheme resulted in some free riding. Not everyone took advantage of the system, but enough did to push the average price of lunch up. We contrast the average price of lunch when they were eating with their 5 nearest and dearest with the average price of college lunch. The difference between the two settings is the level of anonymity. There is only so much you can ask your favorite friends to pay before they aren't your friends anymore. Then I ask why the average price of a meal in round 4 was higher than it was in round 3. They were, after all, both college lunches. Someone will say they felt ripped off in round 3. They ate $10 worth of food and had to pay $28 for it. By round 4, many students realize they need to order a lot of food to get their money's worth. Then we contrast the average price of a meal in round 1 with the average price of a meal in round 4. In this instance, the average student valued lunch at $11.70. By round 4, they were paying $89.37 for lunch. Of course, if you pay $89 for lunch, that leaves a lot less money to purchase other things which you enjoy. Almost everyone agrees they don't want to pay $89 for lunch. Then we note that most of them, given the opportunity to choose between group pay and private pay, chose private pay. In fact, most of them never want anything further to do with the group pay system. Then I reveal the point of the exercise. Group pay mimics taxation. The size of your income tax bill is not determined by the dollar value of the government-provided goods and services which you consume. This leads to a good discussion of the parallels between the experiment and our income tax system. It is important to point out that the results would not be as extreme if Dom were not on the menu. There are some people, and I might be among them, who simply can't resist experiencing a bottle of Dom when others are paying. If Dom wasn't available, we would have less of a problem. To solve the problem of gluttony, the size of the menu must be limited. I conclude by emphasizing that this is not an argument for anarchy. This class serves as a springboard for lecturing on public goods and goods which generate positive externalities.